and I'm delighted to be joined here in the studio with Dr. Mehna, Professor of Political Economy. Good morning.
Good morning.
And as usual, we start with the اليوم and we read Italian Prime Minister supports Egypt in its fighting against terrorism. Italy's Prime Minister Matteo Renzi announced that his country supports Egyptian people and government in fighting terrorism during a joint press conference with President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. Renzi said that Italy will do its best to achieve stability in Egypt. So how can the two countries unite to fight terrorism and at the same time in another field to form a real partnership that serves the benefit and the interest of the two countries?
First of all, the approach of President Sisi definitely is to focus on restoring the international relations, particularly the ones that we lost over the past 10, 15 years. And the support of Italy, Vatican, and France basically reflect the genuine focus of the will of the people, and we are in favor of that. And we also notice that Egypt is going through the transition period quite peacefully, and the Muslim Brotherhood basically were in a position that will create a major chaos in terms of terrorism in the entire region, not just in the Arab countries, and therefore they found the danger that these groups really put on the entire Arab, not just the Arab countries. So here, we join forces with Egypt to try to fight terrorism, particularly to ensure, a peaceful transition in the Arab Spring.
And what about forming a real partnership that serves the interests of the two countries and attracting more French and Italian investments?
If we remember, the former president Mubarak announced the establishment of the new Mediterranean alliance, which was basically started with President Sarkozy of France. So these were maybe strong ties with France and Italy, but I think he's trying to reactivate the ties with Italy and France. We benefit from them in terms of technology transfer, this direct investment, as well as the military equipment. In terms of the economy, we find that Italians are on the top of the list of the tourists coming to Egypt, as well as the French, particularly in cultural tourism and the archaeology. So we are the important countries to us in terms of tourism, and basically by focusing on foreign direct investment, the tourism sector, as well as export to these countries, will help us improve the balance of payment, as we already have a negative balance of payment, looking at increasing the number of jobs. So if we're looking at the Federal Reserve at the moment, it's about $13 billion. By increasing the foreign direct investment, attracting investment from these countries, on top of that, increasing export from Egyptian manufacturers to these countries, as well as encouraging tourism to come back to Egypt, I think will help us to restore the balance of payment and increase the economic growth from 2% to 3.5% at least.
And moving to online, and we read the Pope urged Sisi to ensure peace during Egypt transition. Pope Francis urged President Fattah el-Sisi on Monday to secure peace during his country's political transition and called on Egypt to embrace its diplomatic role in the troubled Middle East during what the Vatican described as cordial talks, the first between an Egyptian leader and the Pope at the tiniest city-state in 8 years. The pontiff stressed the closeness and solidarity of the Church to all the people of Egypt during this period of political transition. The Vatican statement expressed hope that Egypt's constitutional safeguards on human rights and religious freedoms may be strengthened. So what's the significance of President al-Sisi's visit to the Vatican and his meeting with the Pope?
Definitely, as you can mention, Egypt was always accused of violating human rights rules and violating the freedom of speech, the freedom of religious and different cults. So here the visit to the Vatican proves that Egypt is always the land of multi-religions, the land of multi-cultures. And here also proves that Egypt is not anti-Semitism, and that was accused long ago by the Jews, that Egyptians are really abusing them. So here, President Sisi gives the entire world a valid proof inside the Vatican that Egypt welcomes freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and is able to deal with anyone no matter what religion he is on or what culture he's from, and we ensure that peace and security is throughout the world is spread.
Moving to South al-Balad, where we read Egypt to reopen Rafah crossing Wednesday. A Palestinian official said that Egyptian authorities will partially reopen the Rafah border crossing linking Gaza with Egypt's Sinai Peninsula on Wednesday and Thursday, describing the move as almost certain. Meher Abu Sabha, the head of Gaza's border authority, said the move was aimed at allowing Gaza residents stranded on the border with Egypt to return to the blockaded Palestinian territory. Egypt closed the Rafah border crossing, Gaza's only access to the outside world, on the 24th of October, following an attack on a military site in the Sinai Peninsula that left 31 Egyptian troops dead. So why is the Palestinian official describing this move as certain? And to what extent this move will affect Egypt's security?
The Palestinian officials started to change their attitude towards the opening of the crossing, because they only blame Egypt for closing the crossing, but also forgetting that Egypt is required or obliged to protect its citizens and its own national security. So here we have seen over the past few weeks the structure of hundreds of tunnels, and also the evacuation of the buildings along the border to close to 1 kilometer. Also enables the armed forces to destroy the entire line of tunnels. So here Egypt is trying to maintain that the official crossing is the Rafah crossing, and Palestinians have to adhere to these rules, protecting their own citizens as well as the national security of Egypt. And Egypt is not going to accept any violation anymore to its own territories or its own national security. And that's where we see the Palestinian officials started to change their attitude by accepting the decision of Egypt. And I think from now on we will have to accept that, because it's our own national security. We do not mind at all. And we've seen over the past few weeks many trucks, or hundreds of trucks, went to Gaza with aid, food, medicine, and so on. So Egypt is not really preventing any aid from passing through Gaza, but it has to go through the official channels, and this is what we have to get used to.
And moving to Al-Ahram newspaper, where we read 11 terrorists killed after targeting military forces. The military spokesman Brigadier Muhammad declared the killing of 11 alleged extremists in the Sinai Peninsula after a heavy exchange of fire with military troops. Egyptian troops were fired upon by mortar missiles, anti-craft machine guns and bombs, though no casualties were reported. In a statement on Facebook on Monday, Sanu said 12 vehicles without license plates allegedly used by terrorists were seized and destroyed. So to what extent the armed forces have gone in the fight against terrorism?
First of all, we would like to thank our brothers and sisters in Sanaa, the government, for evacuating the region, because that helps the armed forces to target the terrorist groups more accurately, and at the same time stop the smuggling of weapons and drugs through the canals. In terms of the terrorist attacks, they will never stop until they really finished completely. So we see 11 terrorists killed as well as 13 being arrested this morning. So what we're talking about here is a focus and determination from the armed forces to eliminate all forms of terrorism in Sinai and restore peace and security in that particular region. Also because it's a sensitive region with Israel and Gaza Strip, so any violation of peace in that particular area affects the relationship with these countries, and we know that we have the peace treaty and we don't want any problems from these terrorist attacks. So definitely we are on the way to eliminate all forms of terrorism, and definitely will be ending in the next few months.
And how do you see preparations by the armed forces and police to counter some calls for protests on the 28th of November?
I think the armed forces are quite aware of that, and particularly the intelligence have full information on that area. And we've said that a few months ago that we will never stop. The always try to create that chaos and havoc in the region, trying to prove basically that Egypt is not a stable country and they will never be able to stabilize situation. But I think this is not happening. The Egyptians are now aware of the conspiracy, and that's the most important thing, because the national security starts with the citizen. It's not by just facing terrorist groups with heavy metals. It starts with the citizen, and the awareness of the citizen now is quite important to help the armed forces. So the preparation that you asked about in terms of the armed forces and the police, I think with the support of the citizen will be a lot more stronger in terms of cooperation with the forces, and I see the Egyptians are all cooperating in terms of helping enforcing the rules of the police and the armed forces. And definitely on the 28th we'll have to be a lot patient with the armed forces and police, helping them to check everything if they wanted to. But I think in terms of preparation, we're fully aware of what's happening, and all exits and into the capital are basically secured. So I'm not really worried about it. It's just a matter of propaganda and using the media to scare people. That is not going to happen, because Egyptians along the past 2.5 years already got used to that.
And still in Ahram newspaper, where we read Egyptian stocks slide with market capital losing £12 billion. Egyptian stocks declined on Monday as Arab investors sold. The benchmark EGX 30 index lost 1.27% to record 9,156 points. Arab investors were net sellers to the tune of 34.5 million Egyptian pounds, while Egyptian and non-Arab foreign investors were net buyers. The broader index EGX 70 fell 2.21%. So how do you see the performance of the Egyptian stock market?
First of all, the stock exchange, the stock market is not always a reflection of the economic state, but it is an indication of the feeling that goes around the market. Some people are scared of doing it, so they basically sell shares. So it's not really a reflection that we have to worry about. I think the most important thing here is we need to focus on production. We need to focus on local investment, and we need to focus on attracting foreign investment. And particularly, just in a few seconds, speaking about the internal investment, we've seen that the Egyptians have managed in 7 days to collect $9 billion going towards the Suez Canal. So basically, that is equal to 8 years of US aid to Egypt. So we are aware that Egypt is full of money, and in the last housing project collected £4 billion from people. So Egypt has the money, and that's why I said that we need to focus on internal investment, offering projects, and also the United law in terms of the reform law of investment that President Sisi talked about in Italy last night. Also will talk about will handle the investment in one shop. Investment. So I think this is what we need at this stage, is to basically help the Egyptians invest their money.
Okay, now we'll go for a short break, and then we'll resume the past review with our guest for today, Dr. عماد مهنا. So stay tuned. Welcome Welcome back. Joining us, Dr. عماد مهنا, Professor of Political Economy, who is talking to us more about the local press today. So, back to Al-Ahram Online, and we read UAE fund to provide $200 million in loans to microfinance projects in Egypt. The United Arab Emirates States Investment Fund announced on Monday to provide $200 million in loans for microfinance projects in Egypt, in what it said would create more than 120,000 jobs by 2020. Abu Dhabi-based Khalifa Fund for Enterprise Development, it signed a loan agreement with the Egyptian government in Cairo. Khalifa Fund's chairman Hussein al-West said that some 100,000 projects, more than 120,000 job opportunities are likely to be created by 2020 through the funding. So how can these kinds of projects help the economy at this stage?
First of all, if we're looking at the economy, we need three things to be really present: the manpower, capital, and land. If we're talking about land, we do have land, particularly the Sinai Peninsula, with its full resources, very rich resources that we need to utilize. Number two, we have highly qualified labor force, close to 32 million Egyptians. The third point was the capital. I think here the Arab brothers are supplying us with that particular aspect that we need. And we've seen 3 days ago the Egyptian side, the investors meeting here in Egypt, visiting the Suez Canal corridor, also putting some objectives for the projects that will be implemented in the Suez Canal area. So I think what we need here is, what we suggest is that all this investment or capital here, we can have a lot to do in Sinai in the next few years.
And still we are Ahram Online, and we read that Mkhotط had unearthed in Luxor. A new discovery has been made at Alman Temple, 25 kilometers south of Luxor. A mission from the French Institute for Oriental Studies unearthed a limestone head of 18th dynasty king Mkhotط III, grandfather of King Tutankhamun. Antiquities Minister Mamdouh Abdamati told Ahram Online that the head was accidentally found during restoration and conservation works carried out at the temple's foundation. So how can we promote for these discoveries to attract more tourists?
I think Egypt needs to do a lot of work, particularly the Ministry of Tourism, on events such as these. I think 2 years ago we discovered the Palace of Cleopatra underwater in the Mediterranean. I think that event also went unnoticed. There is a lot of monuments. We're talking about 35% of the world monuments still exist in Egypt. The Upper Egypt and Alexandria basically have the Greek-Roman region. So what we need to look at here is promoting them as special events during the excavation of these pieces and put them on show to attract tourists, as we do in the annual ceremonies in Qanat and Luxor temple.
And back to Al-Ahram newspaper, and we read Tunisia presidential runoff between Essebsi and Marzouki. Tunisia's incumbent president Recep Marzouki Monday appeared set up for a runoff vote against anti-Islamist party ex-premier after the first free leadership vote since 2011 revolution that sparked the Arab Spring. The election is a milestone in the North African country where a popular uprising set off a chain of revolts that saw several Arab dictators toppled by citizens demanding democratic reforms. The campaign manager for Marzouki said he's neck and neck with former President Beji Caid Essebsi, the pre-polling favorite among 27 candidates vying for the top job. So how do you follow Tunisian election?
I think the Tunisian scenario is the most successful so far. Perhaps because they're not targeted by Daesh and the rest of terrorist groups as Egypt is. So I think here they have a free ride. The population is quite small, talking about 5 million. They are economically a lot better situation than Egypt. So they have less problems to deal with in terms of achieving the constitution, the presidential and parliamentary elections. So I think we are very well on the way, and we hope to see them settled, because that definitely will give a boost to the rest of the Arab region, particularly in North Africa, helping us and helping Egypt to restore peace and security in Libya.
So, Dr. Ahmed Mohanna, Professor of Political Economy, thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
And now